Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Words in the Word tutorial on PsychoPy3. So, in this video, this will be the last video, part 3 of our adding a typing task series. So, in the previous video, we added additional code that would allow us to collect relevant data, and we added another component for checking for errors. And we saw how all of that outputted data nicely to our output file. So in this one, we're going to go over the differences in the JS and Python code. I've already gone ahead and done this. I felt like doing it live might be a bit of a waste of time as it can get a little bit tedious, and I'd rather just point out some of the differences and kind of highlight those rather than talking you through every single line of code. Because by now you should know how it all works. Next, we're going to upload everything to Pavlovia, then we're going to test it and have a look at the data output and compare it to the one that we got from the offline version. All right, here we go. All right, so let's start out with the lexical decision task part, because there was a code element that we added here, and that was to basically prevent the typing task, the typing component from running when the trial was for a non-word. So we created this typing routine equals true. And so here we get the first difference between JS and Python is that the true should have a lowercase t. It's an easy thing to forget. And currently PsychoPy does not highlight JS code the way that it does with, or mark JS code, I should say, rather than the way that it does with Python. All right, and then at the end of the routine here, we were changing our Boolean value based on what the stimulus type was. So here, for an if statement in JavaScript, we're going to put our condition in parentheses, and then what we want it to do if that is true in curly brackets. And again, we can see lowercase f for false. And another thing I should point out is just having a semicolon at the end of everything. Again, I think I might have mentioned this before, but one of the most common kind of typos to make with JS code is not closing your brackets properly. And if you don't close brackets properly, sometimes the error won't come up on that line of code. It may even come up as the last line in the experiment. So earlier, that happened to me. I forgot to close my curly bracket. So, if, for example, if this wasn't there, the line where it says that my error occurred may be the last line in the experiment. It just says that it's still looking for input. All right, so this looks pretty straightforward. So now we can go over into our typing routine. So again, exactly the same, just with a semicolon. All right, let me just make this a bit bigger. Okay. So this is something that was actually took me a little bit of time to figure out. So initially, the lines that I'd written here to prevent the prevent this typing routine from running if there's a non-word wasn't working. So here for the Python code, it's been working fine. So basically, if the typing routine Boolean value is equal to false, then we just use this line, continue routine is equal to false, and that should exit. But that wasn't working for the JS code, and I'll actually take you into the code and show you why that wasn't working. So initially, I wanted to have this at the beginning of the routine to detect whether or not this routine should run or not, or just basically to end the routine as quickly as possible. So I've had to put it at the beginning, in each frame. So essentially, once it gets past the beginning of the routine, then it's going to turn the routine off as soon as it detects that this value is equal to false. So the reason why eluded me for quite a while. So let me see. If I go into my files here, so here I'm on GitLab again. I'm going to go into my HTML file, and I'm going to open up my demo LDT JavaScript, and I'm going to go down to here in these commented out lines. You can see what's actually happening. These are provided by PsychoPy automatically when you generate the HTML. So they were ending the lexical decision task, and we should be starting, yeah, so prepare to start the routine typing. So initially, I had my value here that was setting continue routine equal to false. But what was happening was before it was actually checking whether or not it should continue the routine, it was continuing down to this function that was then making routine equal to true again. So this is not the case in Python. In Python, it works a little bit differently. Um, so what was happening was I was setting the continue routine value equal to false up here, and then it was automatically setting it back to true back here. And so it wasn't actually turning off that routine. So all I needed to do was insert the code um, in the each frame section, and that inserted it automatically below this, which allows me to set it to false. And then once I get down to this line, so this is basically saying if this exclamation point continue routine basically is just short form for if continue routine equals false. Or I guess technically it means if continue routine does not equal true, then we move on to the next part of the experiment using this scheduler event line. All right, so that was kind of interesting, and that's something that I had never looked at before. But that's kind of the power of being able to find the code and then go in and see what's really going on. That's really useful to do. If you ever want to look through this code, I mean, you can just simply go to Pavlovia, um, explore, and we're going to search for the name. So demo LDT. So we just search for that. Um, basically anybody, this is all open access. So this is whether you're signed in on my account or not, you can go to view code, and it's gonna deliver you to that page where all the files for this are. So you can actually, if you're curious, you can actually take a look at uh, at the code yourself, and spend some time. Search for some of the JavaScript syntax online, see what it does. And you can also go to the PsychoPy3 API. PsychoPy3 API. So if you search for that, it's and go to this page here. I don't actually. This is not the right page. I think actually you should search for PsychoJS API. There we go. Yeah. So if you go into here, there we go. Oh, I should have clicked the first link back there. So basically, you get to this. This is the page where all of the PsychoJS information is stored, and you can go down here and you can have a look at the PsychoJS API. And on the side here, you can kind of navigate around. And if you're ever curious about what any of these things does, then you can go in there and find it. So if you wanted to make a clock, for example, you can go in here and it's going to give you all the information you need to learn how to use that function. Similarly with basically anything that you wanted to learn about PsychoPy JS version. Cool. Yeah, so I recommend like browsing through there if you have time. That can be really useful. Where were we? Okay, so I think we were still here. So I just mentioned about the clock. Again, it's a little bit different. For JS, we have to write this, we have to add new, and the way we access clock is not through core, but through utility. So utility.clock, and that's going to create the clock and start running it. All right. So a couple of things are different in here as well. So ignoring this first line up here, the way that we get keys is not through event, but through PsychoJS and then, pardon me, then through event manager and get keys. And that's going to do exactly the same thing as get keys in the Python version. And again, JavaScript doesn't have a length function. We're just going to look for the attribute length that's in these keys by using these keys dot length. All right, again, we have conditions in parentheses and then um, followed by curly brackets. That's all the same. The way that we're using backspace is a little bit different if we look at this line. So in Python, we're able to access, we're able to reset the length by um, calling part of the string um, using this indexing, which we can also use here, but we have to use the function slice, and that's going to do exactly the same thing from 0 until the second last um, item in the array in this case, rather than list. Right, and then the code that we're going to use to add information to our output file is a little bit different. We're using psychojs.experiment.addData, and then just like before, we have the same getTime function. So we're calling the time, checking the time on the clock, basically. All right. Next entry is also the same here. We're just accessing it through PsychoJS and then experiment rather than this experiment like we're doing over here. This is all the same. I think I mentioned this before when I was first creating this line. There's just this really neat, easy function to uppercase. So we're basically just applying this function to uppercase to whatever the letter in these keys are, and it's going to make it into an uppercase letter. Much less interesting than this version over here. All right. Again, so rather than using core quit, we're using psychojs.experiment.experiment ended. Alternatively, we could have also used psychojs.quit. Those would both be exactly the same. And as far as I know, there's no reason to use one over the other. Maybe psychojs quit is more direct. Because I imagine this is going to exit because some code that's generated automatically by PsychoPy will detect this value later on and then exit. So if you're having any trouble with this kind of function, maybe just try psychojs.quit if you want to quit in a more direct fashion. Okay, this is all the things I've already explained. So again here, when I'm accessing like a chunk of the target string or a target list, I can just use the square brackets. But here I have to use I can't just use square brackets to access that kind of thing. And also, it doesn't know what what the colon means if I put it in between here. So I have to use this substring function going from 0 to whatever position in the string. Again, it's the same deal. It's non-inclusive. So if L equals 1, it's only going to access position 0. If L equals 5, it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's all good. Good. I think that is everything. So again, there's not a huge difference between the two, but there's just enough difference to kind of lead to a lot of interference. So I learned both of these kind of at the same time, and so I often make mistakes between the two. I forget which functions to use where. It's just a matter of troubleshooting. You're going to make mistakes, and I think I've gone over already how to identify those mistakes. Um, I could do it here one more time. So I'll just forget to close a curly bracket here and attempt to run the experiment. All right, so always remember to fill this line. That's just really important. Okay, I'm going to run it. And I'm pretty sure it's going to try and run in this browser again. It is. and it's definitely not going to run properly. So what I'll do is inspect the page. This is definitely, I'm not sure how to do this in other browsers. I've only ever used Chrome and this knockoff version of Chrome. All right, so here, this is what I was talking about. So it's saying unexpected end of input, and it's saying the line is 671. So I think I had this open already. Yeah, I did. Oh, but it might not be the updated version. I'll just refresh the page. Let's go all the way down. And I'm guessing 671 is going to be the last line. Yeah, there we go. So again, if you forget to close those brackets, it's not going to tell you exactly where you forgot to close the bracket, unfortunately. Uh, but that's one telltale sign that you've forgotten to close a curly bracket, is if the error is in the kind of last, or I guess this would be even the line after the last line in the JavaScript code. And so that'd be like a good red flag for me to notice and then go back in and double check. Like, oh, stupid me. For like the 100th time, I have forgotten to close the curly bracket. So I'll add that in and it should run smoothly. This line of code, this summary happens a lot in my life. All right, there we go. So that is running. There we go. Ball. You'll notice that that default text kind of flashed at the beginning. I still haven't been able to find a way to fix that. If you do, please let me know. My email is on the title screen. Um, but I've contacted the PsychoPy developers as well, and they can't seem to figure out what's going on there. But it's been consistent across all of my experiments. Even when I set input text to blank at the beginning, there's always this little flash of like, I guess, like just one frame where input text is equal to default text, and I can't for the life of me figure out why it's doing that. Right. All right. So as we can see, when it's a non-word, it's skipping that the typing component, and when it's a word, it's bringing me right there. So that looks really good. I'm going to exit, and then exit the experiment. There we go. So my data should be saved. I'll just close that. And again, in this case, I'll access my data by refreshing here, and that should pull that data file from the repository into my local data folder. There it is. Oops. Don't need to look at that. Is it this one? I guess it is. That's the time, right? Yeah, that is the time. Okay. All right, so everything is looking good. It's a little bit out of order, but that's fine. That's something I can fix just by moving my columns around. May as well just do that. Just gonna bring those to the back here. Okay, so I can see I've got my lexical decision stuff up here. So what the duration was, what the key response was, whether it was correct or not, and then the response time. And I've got my backspaces here and my errors. Oh, it looks like it's writing backspace every time. Shouldn't actually be doing that. Ooh, great. I have something to go and fix. All right, let's have a look at this again and figure out why it's recording backspace for every single trial. And that's because I took a shortcut and accidentally copied the code I'd already written up here down here. So I should add these keys rather than just logging backspace every single time. All right. And let's fix this. Error replaced backspace with these keys. Double check that I did that. I typed that right. These keys. Okay, great. All right, and here I will intentionally make an error and then fix it, and then exit. That should save my data, and this time hopefully it's working just like I expected to. There it is. And how's this looking? So I've got my lexical decision stuff here, and there we go. Now I can see I've got my proper letters, and it's detecting errors like a champion. There we go. That's my backspace. There's my initial error, and then once the error is fixed, it's going back to telling me that it's just fine. Awesome. Well, that's looking really good. And again, I'm not really sure. This is something you can look into. I'm not sure why exactly the order is the way that it is. Um, I would expect that all of this kind of data gets collected together. Um, it'd be nice if the output file didn't have to get kind of rearranged every time. And occasionally, the order is a little bit inconsistent, which can lose you a bit of time in your kind of data entry and compiling all of your data together. That can be a little bit annoying. That's something that I haven't figured out how to resolve yet. So again, if you find out how to do that, please let me know. Okay, let's get out of here. Don't need that anymore. All right, I think we have accomplished all of our goals for this video. We went over all the JS and Python code. We updated everything to Pavlovia. We tested it and checked the data output, and I'm going to add in here that we also did some troubleshooting, unexpected troubleshooting, the best kind. All right, again, if you want to access any of that code, I showed you how to do that, so please go to Pavlovia, check it out, do the experiment, have a look at the data output. All of that's open access. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next series.